Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and I am super excited to introduce our colouring project, which is now going to take us up until the start of Cavemas. And as discussed at length in the comments under one of the other videos, we are going with Rooms of Wonder by Johanna Basford. I was anticipating this book with great excitement, shall we say, and I'm absolutely delighted with some of the images in here. I've been perusing and I have decided that the image that we're going to tackle is the forest bedroom. It's just absolutely freaking adorable and it encompasses quite a lot of my favourite things. There are some drawings and some artworks. There's trees, which I obviously like to draw. We have books as well, and we have cosy things like blankets and cushions. So this is perfect for me. So today we're going to start with the background, and I wanted to have a forest day stroke sleepy time type background. So we are going to be using Prismacolor coloured pencils throughout. As I always do, I will show you the swatch in my swatch book so that if you don't have Prismacolors, you can pick out a similar colour in your own set of pencils. I was thinking about a sort of greenish background, and I don't want to add any more detail in because we've got these lovely vines that take up quite a lot of it as well. But I was thinking about a night sky maybe fading into, you know, like sort of greenery. That's the kind of feel I want. So I have picked out some pencils for us here. To start with, I have got Peacock Blue, which is PC 1027. And if I show you down here, I'll zoom in a little bit here. This is the Peacock Blue down here. So it's quite a vibrant, almost teal colour, but slightly more blue than teal. And then I have some Cobalt Turquoise, which is PC 105, and that is this colour here. So quite a deep saturated greeny blue, but leaning more into green than blue. And I have the Parrot Green, which is this one here, and that is just very vibrant turquoisey green colour. So that's what we're starting with. As always, it tends to be a thing with me now. I have a blue indigo pencil as well, which is PC 901 in this set, and that's just to deepen up some areas. So there's a couple of points of interest in this background that I just want to point out before we start, and it's one of the reasons for a couple of my pencil choices. I feel like this should be a nighttime scene. Obviously that's what we're going for, so we've got to take into account what's going on out the window. We can see houses, there's very little sky out there, but I am going to make this look like it is dark outside, so we'll take that into account. But also there are light sources within the picture, and we have these candles in the sort of crook of the trees, so we're going to take that into account when we're working on this background colour. And I'm going to start with those areas. So for that I am taking my lightest pencil, which is the Parrot Green, and that's PC 1006. And with the pencil on its side and a very light hand, which is the way that Jem likes to roll here in the Colour Cave, I am going to take this and I'm going to map out those lightest areas, so the most concentrated areas that surround those candles. So immediately around the flame I'm actually going to leave white, and not drastically so, but these are the areas where we're going to see the most light. And there'll probably be a little bit outside here as well. So it's up to you how big you want that pale radius to be. I'm going to make mine substantial just to make the picture quite interesting. But you can take that out as far or keep it as close in as you like. If you want a more sort of moody, cosy, intimate feel, you might keep that a lot closer in, you know, make that circle quite small. Okay, so the other nice thing about the way Johanna has actually drawn out this picture is because she's got these vines in the background, it gives us lots of nice natural places to stop when we're actually colouring. And I'm going to use that to my advantage right now. So I'm taking my darker turquoise colour here now, so this is the Cobalt Turquoise, and I'm going to start to blend in to this lighter colour in some of these areas like this. So I'm just going to follow the tree line here. I also haven't bothered to sharpen this pencil. Just when we're doing backgrounds and blending and things, you don't really need to have a really sharp point on your pencil. It's not really essential, so we'll not worry about it too much. So I'm just working around the outside edge of the Parrot Green here, and just laying down a little bit of this darker colour. And that's really just an indicator for me, again, so that I know where I'm working to. Now after that, we're actually, if you think about the picture from bottom to top, we're actually going to go from the lighter colour at the bottom as well, and we're going to fade that out up into a darker colour all the way up to the peacock blue. So with the exception of this area, and it's just because the candle's there, the rest of these areas up at this tree line is actually going to be this peacock blue colour. So again, I'm going to demonstrate in this little area here because it's a good size, it's a good shape, it's just a really good place to start this. So I'm going to take that peacock blue, and as I say, I'm going to keep it right up against that tree line, and we'll join it in with what's going on here. Now it's up to us to decide how far down I want this to come. Again, it's kind of at your discretion. It's not set in stone, it's not imperative. You're thinking about like the rule of thirds. So if we take this section here to the right of this tree trunk, if we have 3 colours, really you would want them to be relatively equal. So realistically, we'd maybe bring our peacock blue down to around the top of the bed, and then we could go into this cobalt turquoise and then have the parrot green maybe just above where these toadstools are. That might work quite nicely. So let's make that a stopping point there, and we'll get a quick layer of this down. Now this gives us a really good chance to map things out, see what the colours are going to look like, and if we've got a nice light layer like this, it's a lot easier to change it up, you know, and move those colours slightly. I'll bring that down, maybe to about there. And I might actually bring that cobalt turquoise down further on one side, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And then obviously we've got our parrot green here. Okay, so let's grab the parrot green, and that's going to come. Yeah, okay, I'm quite happy with that. We'll start up in this top area here, and we'll get some colour down. So I'm now just going back over what I had there with the appropriate pencils, and we'll start to build up some colour here. Okay, now I've got this peacock blue. There we go. So now I've done a bit of blending here. I'm just going to carry on down with this peacock blue. This is what I was saying about having these areas to work in. You know, the picture's just broken up in all the best spots, and it makes for really nice bite-sized chunks of colouring. So if you don't have a long time to spend it per session, this is ideal because you can just do a weeny bit at a time. And you feel as if you're, you know, because you've completed a section, you still get a sense of achievement and as if it's been worthwhile. You know, you have actually accomplished something, even if you've just been sat down for a short time and grabbed your pencils for, you know, like 10 minutes like we've done here so far. Let's work on that transition area a little bit. And it's just a case of overlapping the pencils with each other. And then I can build up some more colour in this area here. Okay, there we go. So we can see this top section here starting to take shape. So we've got the remnants of the light, some of it which has crept behind this big bough of the tree, but it's heading into this darker area. So this is where I'm going to bring in the indigo, and just round the edge of this tree line here, I'm going to pop in a little bit of indigo. Really darken that corner down. Okay, lovely. So we can move on now to our next section and our next transition. So this entire part here is just the cobalt turquoise. So I'm just going to carry on and get that done. And I'll catch you back up as I'm transitioning down into this parrot green down at the bottom here. Okay, so similar to what we have going on here, I'm going to do the same here, and I'm taking this darker colour a little bit further down, just around the outside of the frame. I might even just bring it all the way down here for funsies. And then I'm going to grab this lightest green, and I'm going to start in this bottom corner here. Good a place as any. So I want this to be a lot more vibrant than what we've got up here. You know, this is very washed out here, but it's meant to be desaturated because of the candlelight, whereas this should be more like the actual colour. So that is what we're going for. So I'm just going to blend that in with our mid colour. And this is the lovely thing about Prismacolors, they blend so well together. They just like being happy and smushy all together, don't they? So just nipping back to the cobalt turquoise here. And we're going to get this overlap and this transition going. Got another layer of the cobalt turquoise down now. Okay, we'll get a little bit more now of this parrot green, which is just, it's just the nicest colour. I really like it. Now for some of these little gaps down in the grass here, I'm going to sharpen up my cobalt turquoise. So that's our middle colour from in here. So we're just going to get a little bit of shadow in here. The wind has really picked up outside. It was supposed to be very wet here today, and it never came to anything. And you, as a Scottish person, you're always slightly suspicious about that. You automatically assume bad weather, and then, especially if it's forecast, and if you don't get it, you're like, right, okay, so what's the catch? And clearly the catch is that it is howling a hoolie outside. And that was not forecast, and that's come out of nowhere. Okay, so you can see where I'm going here. I've got like a little bit of a shadow feel. So I'm just going to go back to this green colour now and just add another little bit here. Now we are going to be going over this with a colourless blender. The texture of the paper in this book I find quite odd, and it doesn't really lend itself to smooth colouring. I have tried with polychromos pencils as well, and I actually thought that I would have less of it. You know, you see quite a lot of the white of the tooth of the paper here. I'm usually all for that, but for a background like this we don't want everything looking crazy, so we'll get our colourless blender out, but we'll do that afterwards. So for this section here, it does look a bit like a patchwork quilt, and I don't want you to be concerned about it because it is just literally one sliver of this picture. This is going to develop and become more uniform, obviously, the more of it we do, but I just wanted to demonstrate to you that candle situation and what I was planning there. So these sections here, so this mid section and the two parts here on this side, I'm just going to go ahead and do because these are literally just going to join up with what we've done, so nothing terribly different. Speed this part up, catch you up in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to leave this transition just now, and I'm actually going to start at the bottom. I can be a bit contrary like that. There's no reason for it, other than I just want like a little bit of a change of scenery. So don't read too much into that. It's just a preference, really. I like to work in the dark areas. I think that's why. It's just a preference of mine. It has been such a long time since I've used Prismacolor pencils for something like this, and even now after years of colouring it still astounds me how quickly the point on these wears down. Like, they're so soft. I'm like, oh god, I'm gonna have to sharpen my pencil again. It's a frequent sharpening, but obviously that is the trade-off for this super soft slidey colour, which is kind of what we're after, so we'll not complain too much. But yeah, it's come as a bit of a shock to the system. I have been heavily favouring polychromos pencils this last little while. They are my go-to. But I don't know, I think because the very first colouring book I owned was Enchanted Forest, which was Johanna Basford. I do believe it was her second or perhaps her third book. I can't remember if Lost Ocean came before or after Enchanted Forest. It was that book that started off my colouring journey. I do have flip-throughs of those. I'll link them in the description. There's one with a commentary and one without. And one of the things that did for me was that made my transition from, you know, cheap pencils that you buy when you first start out, you know, until you decide whether or not it's something you actually like, to using Prismacolors, which were my first sort of expensive pencils. Now, I know you guys in the US, they're very expensive here. I think that's why I kind of associate Prismacolors with Johanna Basford books, just because that's kind of like, that's where I first used them. And I had really good fun with it as well. I didn't actually like Prismacolors to begin with. I was like, what is this fresh hell? But it's a very different beast when you've been used to Crayola pencils, and at the time it was W.H. Smith coloured pencils, which back in the day were good pencils. Apparently the formula's changed now and they're a bit pants, so I can no longer recommend those as a beginner pencil here in the UK, which is a shame because they were great. And I have none of them left because I literally used them all down to a stub, and when they ran out I replaced them with Prismacolor equivalents. Okay, there we go, that is looking a little bit more like it. So yes, quite an interesting transition. I didn't want the background to be really plain. I know there's loads of stuff going on in the foreground, but we are going to use a completely different colour palette for the foreground, so I wanted some sort of interest in the background. Okay, if I just come back up here to these candles in this area, I just one. First thing I want to do is sharpen my pencil again. I'm just using my little Tegal multi-sharpener here. This is the one that lets you turn the little wheel and you can get different sized points. And for Prismacolor pencils, because they are really soft, you want a short and stubby point because that reduces the likelihood of breakages, which is what we need. But I just want to, oh yes, get a little bit of darker colour in there. That is all I wanted. Really get some definition down that tree line there. Yeah. And then now that I've got that in there, and I've just lessened up the pressure the closer I've got to those candles, and I'm now going to take a very blunt parrot green and very gently just go over the top of that, and all that is doing is to blend that darker colour in with this lighter area, just to take away the harshness of the colour difference. It's not really about colouring it in. So you can see there, it's just a little bit softer. That's all I'm going for, nothing fancy. I see I'm going to do the same on this side as well, because we want it to look nice. So in this little corner here, this transition the same as down here. So I'm not going to take too much time over this, not going to agonise too much over it. And then sort of finish off this halo. You know, the finish off the reach of the candle, and then we can kind of put that section to bed. to bed. Oh, I didn't even mean that. Oh, jeez. Getting funnier in my old age. Again, it's really nice having these little dinky sections to work in. I'm really enjoying this. This is good fun. I like it. So you can start to see that little like ring glow effect, and that's working out quite nicely. And now we have the rest of this to tackle. So I don't want it to be really, I don't want it to look as if someone's literally like cut a line off here. So I'm going to pop a little bit of that cobalt colour in there. And then I'm going to grab this peacock blue, because this is really the standard colour that we want. But we've got this candle to deal with on this side as well. So the blue is going to be short-lived in this section as well. But we're going to go for it here. I think this is a branch here. I think so. It is now. Same thing again. See, I just don't want this to be sort of cut and dried here. So I'm going to pop a tiny little bit of that in there. Now I'm going to bring the blue down in behind the stereo here. I nearly used a potentially offensive word there. The old Scottish slang word for a stereo like this that has a handle and an aerial is a tranny, and it's shortened form of transistor radio. Not in the derogatory, derogatory sense that the word is used these days, so just wanted to point that out. So if you ever hear a Scottish person using the word tranny and they are not referring to someone in a derogatory fashion, that is the word for a transistor radio. So there you go, there it is, endeth your Scottish lesson for today, should you need one, because you just got one whether you wanted it or not. Right, okay, so here, this is the kind of like the transition area, and I'm just trying not to make this too complicated, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, there we go, good. It's somewhere in there, it's in that band, that's fine. But I'm going to tackle this whole area that we've just done now and match that up. I think I'm quite happy with where the transitions are. I really like this blue colour, it's super pretty. I'm not really a huge fan of blues. I like bluey, greeny colours, but that's because I like green. And I'm a huge sucker for a good indigo, but not for the fact that it's blue, for the fact that it's a great shadow colour. Well, it's good for everything, to be honest. It's a great liner pencil as well. Indigo, the unsung hero of the coloured pencil world. So yeah, I'm not often very struck by blues, to be honest. I'm just not a blue person, but I actually quite like this colour. It's nice. As I'm saying that and colouring here, I'm thinking to myself, it's probably because it's got a hint of green in it. I like it. Like, just admit it, Jem, that if there's any green involved, you're in. Like, yes, true. Just get some more colour down here. I am conscious that if we're going to be using a colourless blender, there has to be pigment on the paper for the blender to, you know, to smoosh about and move into these white spaces. So we need to make sure that we do have plenty of pencil down. Otherwise, it's going to look pretty patchy and sad looking. And that is what we don't want for our picture, because this is going to be great, this picture. Lots going on, they're my favourite Johanna pictures. I always hark back to Grandpa's workshop in Ivy in the Inky Butterfly, or his workroom, or whatever it was called. That was a fantastic picture, because there was just so much going on. It's one of my favourites in that book. So if you're looking for that, now you know. I'm just working my way along that tree line again here. It's funny, when I talk about a tree line, it's usually the top of a set of trees, not the bottom. But in this case, the tree line is in fact the bottom. So hopping over here, this is going to have a similar situation, this part here, to what was going on here. Again, I like to think about the candle first, because that's as far as I'm concerned, that's the complicated bit. Everything else is easy. All the blending and everything's no problem at all. It's the parts with the light parts where there's a lack of pencil that's the problem, because you can always add pencil. It's quite a different thing to be taken away. Okay, so there is the kind of halo. Now already I'm not happy, that's too heavy there. Go a bit carried away with myself, so I've got my little Derwent battery eraser here, and because that is only a light layer of pencil, I can take that down to a very pale version, and I'm going to bring that out here a little bit. That's better. Okay, right, now we're talking. Now that is only one candle, so that'd be a freaking bright candle. So let's get a little bit of the green in here, and that's probably going to be about it, to be truthful. So let's get a darker green ring round the outside here, and then that little bit of cobalt transition there. So now that I've established that, it means I can go on my merry way in this section here and not worry about it looking a little bit off or anything like that. So I'm going to stick with the cobalt here, and I'm just going to carry on, because we were getting on fairly well there. So let's just keep this part going. Again, just a section at a time. We don't need to do anything drastic here. Bite-sized pieces. You don't have to be doing the mapping out of the colours like I do. I find it very difficult to lay down pencil on something like this without getting carried away. So if I give myself set boundaries, particularly when I'm filming, because I'm talking as well, it is really easy to lose your concentration and end up getting really carried away with your pencils. And I don't want that for you guys as well, because that's not going to make a very good video. So I can understand why I'd be like, oh, here she goes again, she's just scribbling down pencil. Do you know what? Fast forward those bits. If you don't want to listen to me chatting, that's fine. Just do it. Just go for it. I will absolutely not be offended if you do that. But this is just my way of doing things. It helps to visualise things, but it also helps to discipline me when I am colouring and talking at the same time. Which, to be fair, I have got considerably better at multitasking, like with over the years. Very, very, very important part of things for me. And I think as well, it helps to build up a really good base colour as well. And I'm all about a good base colour. Maybe a wee cheeky bit of blue in there. There we go. And I can come in hard with my blue up here as well. Yeah. Okay, so just colour to build up here too. And again, a little bit of indigo pencil in there just for funsies. Just for the funsies. Oh, I feel like that line's a little bit harsh on that side. I'll soften that out a little bit. Why not? Jock has just sheepishly sidled over for a cuddle. He fell out with me today because when his skin is itchy, he has a skin condition and it kind of flares up, and it's usually a change of season. So he's a bit kind of like unsettled just now. But when he is itchy, one of the things is he likes to roll on his back in the grass. Now, rolling in things, as in smelly things like poop, is not traditionally a collie trait. So he is doing it because he's itchy, and it's a great way for him to scratch himself. However, today, unfortunately, he found himself rolling in a cow pat. It has been very wet here, so it was a very slushy cow pat, and it was all over the top of his head, and I think he was kind of oblivious to it until it was like dripping from the top of his ears, and he kind of looked at me as if to say what happened there. So he knows that when that happens, it means he has to get hosed down, which is not Jock's favourite pastime. So he's kind of been in a bit of a huff today, and that's the first time. So I took him out at like 11:15 this morning, and it is now 5:20 in the evening, and that is the first time that he's come near me since said hosing down. So yes, absolute and utter blatant huff. But completely self-inflicted, albeit accidentally. You've got to love them, you really do. There's no other option. There is no other option. I think I would very much enjoy a bed in some trees like this. I think that would be right up my street. Absolutely wild outside, it's crazy. The way I describe the location of our farm is we are on top of a high hill, but there are higher hills round about us, but we're quite exposed, and we have a lot of large old trees surrounding the property, and the wind sounds so much worse when it's whistling through the trees, but it seems to be windy all the time. Even in the summer when it's really hot, there is often a wind or a breeze, and sometimes it can be a cool breeze, which obviously is lovely. So when we were getting the crazy 40-degree summer weather, which is just not a thing this far north in Scotland anyway, there was actually days where it was more bearable because it was windy here, whereas if you went down the 8 miles into the nearest village, it was not windy and it was stifling and it was horrible. So we're actually very lucky, but for the majority of our summer days that maybe aren't quite as hot as we'd like them to be, the wind can often ruin things for us and make it feel colder, and than it actually is, and make it slightly unpleasant. So yeah, that works both ways. This little section in here is fairly easy as well. It's all the one colour. Okay, I'm not making this a uniform line here where this lighter colour joins in. I just don't see the need for it. It's much more organic feeling, considering we're in a foresty type bedroom, We don't need to have uniform lines. There's no need for it. I'll just have fun with it and go where the lines take me. I am going to my first social engagement of the winter calendar on Saturday evening. So you'll be seeing this video on Sunday, so I'll have already been. And I am going to a dinner dance, and it is a Scottish dinner dance, no less, which means the dancing is traditional Scottish dancing, which is a ceilidh. The really funny thing is that Mr. Jem is English. He does not know any of the ceilidh dances, despite having lived in Scotland for nearly 20 years now. Doesn't have a clue. And the problem with this is that when we go to things like this, we don't go to a ceilidh very often. Some people have them at our wedding. We had like 3 dances at our wedding because there were a lot of English people at our wedding, which was obviously Mr. Jem's side of the family, and Irish people, which is also his side of the family, and they kind of know what they're doing. Anyway, I digress. So so what happens is when we go to these events, I will eventually persuade him up to dance for a ceilidh dance, but he has to have a little bit of Dutch courage in him before he'll do it. So when I'm teaching him the dances, he's actually drunk and he never remembers them for next time, and then a large period of time passes and he's forgotten everything, so we're back to square one the next time we go to a ceilidh dance. We are going with a couple of Scottish friends, and they have promised me a dance in Mr. Jem's place. So I'll be fine. I'll be all right. It should be good fun. It's just the kind of effort required and the socialising part that I'm not very good at. I'm not going to know a lot of people there, and that's the part I'm not looking forward to. But it's one of those things that, because it involves food, Jack Daniels and dancing in the ceilidh dance sense, I'll manage, I'll be okay. It wouldn't be my first choice of things to do, but Mr. Jem's really looking forward to going as well, because Mr. Jem really likes wearing a kilt. He had not worn a kilt until we got married, so he went a huge chunk of his life missing out on one of the best things you can do as a guy. And he has a family tartan because his dad's Irish, and he doesn't like his family tartan, and his exact words are, "It looks like an expletive tablecloth." He doesn't like his family tartan. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but he doesn't like it. But he didn't think he was entitled to wear a kilt until he found out that he actually had a clan tartan. So that's it. That's one of his favourite things to do now. And the minute we found out this was a formal dinner dance, the first thing he said was, "Would I be able to wear a kilt?" And I was like, "Yeah, the guys will be wearing kilts." And he's like, "Oh yeah." So he has been hiring kilts, and that's a fairly common occurrence here, is for people to be able to go and hire full kilts, like all the garb, so your sporran, your ski and do, waistcoats, jackets, everything. And Mr. Jem more or less wants to wear a kilt every time we go and do something that's formal now. So for his Christmas, he doesn't know it yet, I am buying him a kilt. Handmade, specially fitted for him. And it means he won't have to keep hiring one. So that's the plan. But yeah, that's been a little revelation for him. So for a guy to make that that discovery, you know, into your 30s. That's quite something. And Mr. Jem, because like there, you know, some people that don't really understand the culture and the idea behind kilts, they're like, it's just a guy wearing a skirt. Mr. Jem is a proper old school farmer, like man's man, and he says the experience of wearing a kilt is liberating. That was his exact words. I think that anybody that thinks otherwise has just never tried it. I had to buy myself a dress as well because I've put on so much weight that none of my dresses fit me, so that was a bit depressing. It wasn't completely unexpected though, so never mind. Anyway, I've got a quite nice dress. Yeah, something I'm finding quite strange this year is this is actually the first year that we've lived here that we will have any kind of social engagements because of COVID, and we do obviously we've kind of made friends and things here now, but we don't actually know what the social calendar looks like here because we've never been involved in it. But I'm assuming the fact that we've been invited to parties as early as the middle of November, I think we're going to be okay. And I'm not ashamed to admit that actually one of my favourite parts of lockdown was not having to do stuff like this. I am not a huge socialiser. I don't actually like people that much. Let alone people that I don't know. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that part of the pandemic. And for me, that was one of the few good things to come out of that. Obviously, there's not much good comes out of a pandemic. So it was nice to have, you know, some sort of positive spin on it, albeit under horrible circumstances. So I'm going to have to suck it up though, because one of the things that people say to me all the time is you really need to get out. You need to, you know, get out the confines of the cave, and you need to get out away from the confines of the farm because I spend most of my life here. But the thing is, I'm quite happy. I've not turned into one of these weird people that doesn't know how to interact with other human beings. And I don't think I'll ever be that. I'm too chatty for that. But I'm quite happy, and I wish people would stop telling me I need to get out more. Admittedly, my lifestyle would not suit many people. Lots of people would be bored. Lots of people would be cabin feverish. There's loads of things I like to do in a day, and most of them happen to be in or around the farm or in the house. And I'm very busy, so, you know, each to their own. It's kind of like the ultimate insult though when someone says to you, you need to get out more. You're like, oh, thanks very much, that's nice. Okay, we're moving along quite nicely now. So I'm going to come up into this top corner here. And then I'll work my way down this last side. So let's see what we've got up here. We've got this teeny cheeky little bit in here, which is just going to be the peacock blue with a little bit of indigo. Get that indigo in along the top. Okay, so we can continue round here now into this part, and because we've done the legwork with the candle already, this is fairly plain sailing actually. So I'm just carrying on from this part here, from next door. Just keep this little line going, try and keep that consistency, and we've got a fair bit going on in this little tiny section though, because we've got the transition into the candle area, which is fine. Do this, just soften up this edge again. Remember I did this over the other side. So just pencil on its side, like a 45-degree angle to the paper, and then just light circular motions. That just helps to keep the pressure light. And I'm going to sneak in some indigo here, just in this little bit here. Just because I can. Blue in this section here. You know I can go all in with the indigo in there. Okay, we have 2 candlelit areas now. Okay, so down in this last section now, we just have to mark in our areas where we want our transition colours. I got a bit over enthusiastic there with the camera, I've got a wobble. But didn't make you feel seasick. Right, so I'm going to take this transition roughly here. In there somewhere. I thought it started to rain there. I thought I was hearing pitter patter raindrops. I was about to be incredibly unhappy. And let's take this transition up a bit here. I'm elevating it here artificially so that I can curve it down the same way as I did on the right hand side. See, method in my madness. It's just an adjustment, that's all. There we go, like that. Okay, right, so that's quite good. So let me continue on with the blue here. Right, I'm just going to zip through this section because this is basically a mirror image of what went on over here. I'll zip through this section, and just before we finish up, I'm going to demonstrate a wee bit of the colourless blender to show you how it's going to change this background. So I once again, see, I feel like I'm saying that a lot recently. I shall be with you in just a jiffy. Okay, I just wanted to show you a little bit of this colourless blender. So this is the Prismacolor colourless blender. It's basically a normal Prismacolor pencil, but without any pigment in the core. It is just the bindery waxy part basically. And what it does is, if you use it on top of colour, it smooshes the colour together and just gives you a much smoother appearance. It will lighten it very, very slightly. If you've ever seen a fine layer of wax film, you know, when a candle's dried, kind of the same thing, just on a much smaller scale. And it can give you a really nice effect as well. So this is essentially a technique called burnishing, which you can do with normal coloured pencils as well. But it's like a polishing effect, and you absolutely do not want to do it till you're 100% finished with your colour, because once you've done this, the paper is completely smooth and there is no tooth to pick up any more colour. So this is like the final touches. So I'm going to show you in this section here just to let you see how much of a difference it makes and what it's going to make the colour look like. So I'm on the side of the pencil and I'm pressing quite hard and I'm working in circular motions here, and you can see already just that one tiny bit. Look at the difference. So if I work my way along here, now it's okay for me because these colours all blend together. You will pick up pigment on the end of your blender pencil. If you do not want that to transfer to another part of the image, get yourself a little scrap of paper and keep it to the side, and you can just scribble off the pigment part so that you've got a nice clean tip again and you're ready to go again. And that way you're not dragging colours into each other, particularly if you've got quite dark colours and quite light colours in close proximity. Obviously you don't want to muddy up your lovely light colours with, you know, like a dark blue like this, or a dark green or something. I want to try and avoid that. So just working my way around here. This is a fairly quick process. It's very hard on the hand though. This is exactly the kind of activity that I have to do a section at a time. But you can see the difference already. I mean, that's just crazy. It's so much smoother, it's brighter, and it's given us some really nice smooth transitions there. So I'll keep going down the side here so that you can see the transitions between the colours. So I'm not obliterating all of the white of the paper. It's not disappearing completely, but it is considerably smoother. So you can see where this is going now. You can see I'm making fairly quick work of this as well. It's not taking me a long time to do this. And that's the nice thing. You get like quite sort of an instantaneous result. You know, it's a bit of sort of instant gratification, which we all need once in a while. And this is us transitioning back into this light green now, and I'm just loving this. Like, I am loving this. Look at the difference there. That's just crazy. Again, zoom in. They've got this lovely, smooth, vibrant part here, and the rest just looks a bit wishy-washy. Blend out these bits in between my grass as well, because we've got a nice dark colour down in there too, that cobalt colour. Okay, so for this particular picture, again, if I just zoom out now, if you look at this right-hand side compared to the left-hand side of this one section, for this particular background, a colourless blender is a game changer. Derwent do one as well, and it behaves really well with all types of pencils. It doesn't matter whether oil or wax based, if you can't get hold of a Prismacolor one. The Lyra Splendor blenders are quite popular as well, and also the Caran d'Ache Bright Stick. They all do the same job. Depending on where you are in the world, you might be able to get one cheaper than another, but those are the kind of popular colourless blenders for pencil. So that is us for today, guys. For the next colouring video, I will have this entire background all smooshed out and lovely with our colourless blender, but I'll do that. That can be my homework for next time. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if you've made it this far, a thumbs up would be much appreciated. We do seem to be starting to busy back up in the cave a wee bit on YouTube, which is great, but a thumbs up always helps. A very small action, huge impact, and obviously you'll be helping me out immensely. So I would welcome any comments on this book. Have you got a copy of Rooms of Wonder, or were you excited for it and are you pleased with it? And if you have any suggestions or comments for this particular picture as well, I would love to hear those as well. So thank you very much for watching. Please stay safe and take care of each other, and I'll see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. So have a great day everyone, and bye bye for now.